Urgent! The Ukrainian armed forces have launched a powerful counteroffensive in Zaporizhzhia. The Occupiers' front is falling apart at the seams. Russian war correspondents are in a panic. Moscow has acknowledged the disaster. Russia is losing the main battle of the winter. The Russians have been blinded and deafened. Starlink has been disabled. Drones are grounded and the Ukrainian armed forces are moving into the rear. A strike force of 10 brigades and regiments is smashing through the enemy's defenses. The Occupiers are trapped in a fiery pocket. How Ukrainian assault troops are cutting through the Russian army's rear lines. All the details right now. Watch until the end. My respects, this is Ukraine, today I am Andrei Silakov, bringing you the hottest news. While Shoigu and Gerasimov were lying to Putin that everything was under control, the armed forces of Ukraine launched a large-scale counteroffensive at the junction of the Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions. And this is not just a reconnaissance in force. This is a full-scale rout. The main whiner of Russian propaganda, Yuri Podolyaka, is already throwing ashes on his head. He calls what is happening the main battle of the winter campaign. And he admits that the situation for the occupiers is critical. The Ukrainian command has outplayed them completely.
A few days ago, I said that the AFU was concentrating reserves in the Hysteria direction. At that time, I predicted a counteroffensive would happen soon.
Ukraine secretly concentrated a massive strike force in the Hysteria direction. 7 assault regiments and 3 brigades. And by the time the Russians realized what was happening, it was already too late. Our assault troops advanced, breaking through their defenses like cardboard.
It was most logical to expect this when the fog set in. And accordingly, this is also related to the shutdown of Starlink terminals, which the enemy had re-registered, while ours stopped working. This is also a very serious factor that now allows the enemy to advance here.
But the most interesting thing is, why did a catastrophe happen to the Russians? There were 2 factors that played into our hands. First, they were blinded and deafened. The much-praised Starlink terminal, which they had stolen and reflashed, suddenly stopped working. No communication, no coordination, but there is panic. The second factor is the weather. Even the fog took the side of the Ukrainian armed forces. Thick cloud cover pressed down to the ground. Russian drones. And while they sat blind in their trenches, our assault groups were already moving into their rear. The result is a German build, and even Russian public channels themselves confirm the loss of several settlements. Ternovate, our roadside area, has been cleared. The 33rd Assault Regiment and the Southern Defense Forces are working with precision.
So far, the greatest successes have been achieved by the armed forces of Ukraine. The editorial team reached the area of Velikaya Mikhailovka, where they managed to push back our forward outposts near Arestopol and Sosnovka. Now the AFU are trying to enter Berezovoy. A strike was also launched from the Pokrovsk area and north of Ternovate. The militants, the Russian armed forces, the editorial team, are trying to regain control over the last settlement. But for now, this is a so-called gray zone. Nevertheless, the chances for the enemy, the AFU, the editorial team, to retake it are quite high, given all the circumstances.
The AFU's tactics are brilliant in their audacity. A strike from the direction of Pokrovskoye and Veliko Mikhailovka is a stab in the back for the entire Russian defense. In this sector, the objective is clear: to split their forces, cut off their supply lines, and create a cauldron for the occupiers. The Russians write that the AFU are already trying to enter Berezovoy and are pushing back their screening forces near Arestopol. Podolyaka is whining. The enemy has a very good chance of retaking the territory. While Moscow was dreaming of marching on Kiev, they got a powerful right hook in Zaporizhzhia. And this is just the beginning. The fog will clear, but the panic in the ranks of the Russian army is already there. The front hasn't just come alive, it's blazing. And the initiative is once again in the hands of the AFU. The enemy's defenses are falling apart at the seams, and there is real chaos in the Russian rear. What is really happening on the front line, and where exactly did Ukraine break through the aggressor's defenses? And why are Putin's generals afraid to report the truth to the top? Stay tuned to find out.
Russia is preparing a new full-scale offensive in Ukraine. This is evidenced by data from the Institute for the Study of War. To this end, the Kremlin is reportedly deploying strategic reserves, the formation of which has been underway since 2025. The Russian army is preparing for a new offensive in several directions at once in southern Ukraine and in the Donbass. But the Kremlin's ambitious plans are not destined to come true, as Russia faces serious constraints, analysts are convinced. In particular, according to their assessment, the reserves available to the Russians may prove insufficient to achieve their stated military objectives.
Russia is experiencing difficulties replenishing its ongoing losses in manpower, which reduces its potential to conduct prolonged and intense offensives. This casts doubt on Russia's ability to carry out its plans for a large-scale offensive within the announced timeframe.
Moreover, in the coming months, instead of advancing, the occupiers may begin to actively retreat from the positions they have already taken. And all this is thanks to the coordinated and precise work of the Ukrainian armed forces. Already today, due to Ukrainian drones and severe frosts, which play into the hands of our defenders, the Russians are carrying out 3 times fewer assaults. According to our military, since February, Russia has begun to lose its offensive potential. According to the calculations of the Ukrainian armed forces, the number of assaults in some areas of the front has dropped by as much as 70%.
For example, just a month ago, we could see advances involving around 100 Russian soldiers, but today it's about 30 to 40 soldiers. Why such changes? A sharp drop in temperature and heavy losses, even from frostbite. Plus, recently they have suffered very heavy losses.
To confirm these words, Ukrainian defenders are posting new videos online. For example, in the Volchansk area, border guards are using FPV drones to intercept enemy infantry. And even though the weather conditions today are not just difficult but sometimes extreme, for UAV operators that's no reason to lower their accuracy. Nevertheless, the occupiers are not giving up attempts to advance. These days, the enemy has concentrated most of its forces in the Pokrovsk direction, either one by one or in small infantry groups, on foot or in light vehicles. Russian generals consistently send them to certain death, sending wave after wave of cannon fodder. When the occupiers fail to capture new territory, they at least try to create the appearance of progress. For example, in Zaporizhzhia, Russians preparing to film a fake video about supposed advances on this section of the front were captured. As it turned out, during interrogations, the Russian soldiers were tasked with entering the settlement of Pavlivka, which is under the control of the defense forces. The Russians were supposed to plant a flag in the village and then film a video about the alleged advance of Russian forces. But the soldiers of the 128th Ukrainian Assault Brigade had their own opinion on the matter. As a result, part of the group of occupiers was eliminated, and the rest are now giving interviews in Ukrainian captivity. In retaliation for their complete impotence at the front, the Kremlin's army resorts to terrorizing the peaceful Ukrainian population. It has become known that Russia is preparing new strikes on western Ukraine. 2 reconnaissance drones belonging to the occupiers flew over Rivne region in the past day, circled over Volyn, and are now flying over Lviv region. According to experts, this may indicate a planned attack. By the way, just this week the enemy over 2,000 attack drones, 1,200 guided aerial bombs, and 116 missiles of various types have been launched at Ukraine. Almost every day the Russians strike at the energy sector, logistics infrastructure, and the homes of innocent Ukrainians.
The Russian army was instantly blinded and deafened. The free ride for the occupiers is over. Their stolen Starlink terminals are now nothing but useless bricks. On the front lines, the Russians are experiencing a real blackout and managerial chaos. Commanders can't hear orders, artillery is firing blindly, and drones have lost their orientation. How Elon Musk delivered a technological knockout to Russia, putting an end to the enemy's coordination. Watch the full story for all the details.
They're complaining.
Communication has disappeared in all units of the Russian armed forces. Right now, everything has reverted to the state at the beginning of the special military operation in 2022, when there was a complete lack of coordination between units, which led to the well-known result.
They're writing poems.
The connection is gone, there's no communication. What's the cause of our troubles? Elon Musk is to blame for it all. Elon, what's going on with you?
And they're even making threats.
Well, Trump, now you need to pick up the phone and call Musk. After all, their relationship got pretty bad for a while. So just calmly and quietly explain to him that he needs to come to his senses. Not just to cut off the Russians, but to shut it down completely. Starlink?
The reason for this Russian hysteria at all levels. The shutdown of Starlink at the occupiers' front lines. Right now, the Russian army is experiencing a real shutdown at the front. Z channels are retelling problems with storming Ukrainian positions and are calling Elon Musk a fascist.
Communication in the Russian troops is being cut off. On a serious scale, this greatly reduces the combat effectiveness of the troops. Recent reports indicate that Russian drones are now using Starlink satellite terminals. This development has immediately caused a massive amount of concern throughout all of Ukraine. And the company SpaceX and Starlink are taking their own measures. What measures? All unregistered ones are being disconnected.
Back in December of last year, Ukrainian radio electronics specialist Serhiy Beskresnov wrote that the Russians had started installing terminals, Starlink on strike drones, and Russian drone operators are controlling the birds in real time.
As of today, there are absolutely no sophisticated modern-day electronic warfare systems that can jam this connection. And it has effectively enabled operators, thanks to the high, let's say, bandwidth and real-time communication, to fly drones at exceptionally low altitudes above the ground through our integrated air defense network.
Late January, the Russians used Starlink to destroy Ukrainian armed forces helicopters in the Kirovohrad region, hundreds of kilometers from the front line, and also a passenger train in the Kharkiv region. Now, Beskresnov has written that the Russian army, a retaliatory strike was carried out.
At the front, it's not even a problem anymore. The enemy is facing a catastrophe. All command and control of the troops has collapsed. In many areas, assault operations have been halted. Our forces discovered that there were issues among those who did not promptly submit lists for private Starlinks. The processing is still ongoing.
The Ukrainian specialist also suggested that the occupiers recall the experience of their forefathers and start learning Morse code. Less than 2 weeks ago, Serhiy Flash Beskresnov became an advisor on technological matters to the new Minister of Defense, Mikhailo Fedorov. Most likely, this appointment was one of the factors that influenced Fedorov to officially reach out to SpaceX. Starlink does not operate in Russia. The occupiers bought terminals in third countries and activated them using foreign accounts. These terminals operated on Ukrainian territory and provided the Russian army with communications on the front line. The new Minister of Defense, Mikhailo Fedorov, asked Musk to urgently block all terminals on Ukrainian territory that are not directly connected to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. At the same time, Ukrainian users have the ability to register even unofficial terminals through a special electronic system.
Starlinks that have been added to the whitelist are operational. Russian terminals have already been blocked. We continue to verify Starlink terminals. The first batch of terminals that made it onto the whitelist is already working. For now, the whitelists are updated once a day. If you have submitted your terminal for registration but it is not working yet, please be patient. This is a very large-scale process that takes time. At the same time, we are already working to ensure that data is checked in real time.
Even the Ukrainian command was surprised by the scale of Starlink usage by the Russian army. Communication is logistics in difficult conditions where all supply routes, even many kilometers from the front line, are monitored by enemy drones. Without the transmission of large amounts of information through such a channel, there simply won't be any supply.
We are receiving information from our intelligence about total panic among the Russians. Right now, the Russians have no channels for commanding their troops at the front lines. This also applies to EW pilots. EW, SIGINT, and LBS are not working. Right now, we've stopped the enemy's attempts to attack us with UAVs using Starlinks. We expected that the Russians had already started using Starlinks on small UAVs like the Molnia or BM-35, or using UAVs like the Shahed. It was only a matter of time. This posed a very serious threat to us, which is why we took critical measures on our side.
Right now, the Russian army has no adequate replacement. The Russian equivalent of Starlink is the Rasvet system, which was supposed to be launched in 2027. It's not ready at all. They haven't even designed or launched the satellite that will provide this connection yet. So right now, the most effective solution for Russian soldiers is to start remembering Morse code.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Putin's Shaheds are really finished. The Russian army is going blind while the Ukrainian army is gaining clarity and getting stronger armor. Sweden and Denmark have officially declared a hunt for Russian drones. They are jointly funding the delivery of the latest 3 DM2 anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine. Meanwhile, it's really over for the occupiers' Starlink. Elon Musk pulled the emergency brake and the stolen Russian terminals turned into useless pieces of metal. The Z military bloggers are howling in terror. There's no connection, no drone footage. Coordination has collapsed. Details of the Russian collapse.
All of these fascinating details, along with a wealth of additional information and exclusive insights, will be featured very shortly in our incredibly comprehensive and deeply detailed investigative coverage coming up in the full report scheduled for this particular segment, so please stay tuned and keep watching as we prepare to bring you the complete story right here on our program. As part of a joint initiative to strengthen Ukrainian air defense with a total value of about 226 million euros. This was announced at a joint press conference by the defense ministers of both countries, Paul Jonsson and Troels Lund Olsen. The Trident Mark II is a modern anti-aircraft system from Biosystems. At its core is a 40mm Bofors cannon. It is capable of hitting aerial targets at a distance of up to 12 to 13 kilometers with a firing rate of 200 to 300 rounds per minute. The system itself is mounted on a civilian truck chassis, a Scania with a 6x6 wheel configuration, which allows for rapid deployment using public roads. The use of programmable Bofors 3P munitions makes it possible to destroy drones, cruise missiles and helicopters with high precision by creating a cloud of shrapnel directly in front of the target.
This is one of the elements of air defense that will be developed in our country today. It's not some kind of wonder weapon, obviously, but it is quite effective, at least according to the tactical and technical specifications of the armament, which it really will help us shoot down enemy aerial targets in what is called low-altitude airspace. That is, we're talking about UAVs like the Shahed or Jaran and also the Gerbera, among others.
The media reports that manufacturing a single Trident Mark II takes about 15 months, and some of the systems for Ukraine are already in production. It is expected that these anti-aircraft guns will become a relatively affordable and effective solution in the fight against Russian drones.
This is one of the elements of the air defense system that is currently being modernized in our country. Obviously, these elements today constitute the direct fight against the drones themselves using conventional weaponry, including the anti-aircraft guns we've been discussing, as well as anti-missile systems, equipment and weaponry. Accordingly, this also includes the use of interceptor drones and mobile fire teams.
The day before, Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Mikhailo Fedorov, announced the creation of a Ukrainian anti-drone shield.
On the President's orders, we are changing our approach to protecting the skies. Transforming such a system doesn't happen in just a few days, but we need to start today so that in the end, this issue will be resolved. Our task is to build an anti-drone shield over Ukraine, a system that doesn't react after the fact but destroys the threat while it's still in the air.
According to Fedorov, the anti-drone shield is not about the future. It's about survival today and the possibility for Ukraine to develop even during wartime.
Accordingly, this is not the Israeli shield, and it's not Trump's future Golden Dome either. Obviously, whether it will exist is a question for the Americans, not for us. Today, we really do have, first of all, the country is very large and there are a lot of sites that need to be protected. But accordingly, the main thing is the safety of people. And today, the artificial intelligence component in this ongoing work is being actively improved. We are the ones who should build, if not an air defense dome over our country, then at least do everything possible to protect ourselves from everything that comes flying from the Russian Federation.
No other country in the world has the kind of experience in countering aerial attacks that Ukraine does. Every day and every night, our country is attacked by hundreds of enemy drones. In 2025, Russia launched up to 100,000 Shaheds and other types of UAVs at Ukraine. That's why it's necessary to build a system that works not just in isolated spots, but across the entire country.
This is a layered defense. It's not, well, let's put it this way, so that people tend to imagine it technically as some kind of coverage over the country, really, like a dome, as everyone envisions it, or like an umbrella. But what we're actually talking about is layered defense. That is, this involves the work of small aviation, the work of large military aviation, and also includes interceptor drones, as I mentioned, as one element, as well as the use of classic air defense systems, and accordingly, operations in the air. This is exactly what aviation does, destroying aerial targets. This is ground-to-air operations.
The first step toward protecting Ukrainian skies has already been taken. Joint effort. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and SpaceX have blocked the operation of Starlink terminals for the Russians. The occupiers are complaining en masse about being unable to restore communications, and this will affect the enemy's ability to coordinate actions along the entire front line. And this is just the beginning, so don't get too comfortable over there in Russia. Ukrainian defense is not weakening and is ready to respond at any moment. And
what do you think about the latest events? Share your opinion in the comments, leave a like, and stay up to date with the main news. It only gets more interesting from here.